Good afternoon and welcome to Coffee with Mike. For anyone who has not seen Coffee with Mike before, this is part 4. Coffee with Mike is a very serious look at the world of Japanese prints and paintings. When I started at the Verne Gallery when I was 26, I didn't know that much about Japan. I didn't know that much about Japanese art, but I had grown up with it surrounding me. I began by reading lots of books on Japan, on Japanese history, on Japanese art, both antique and contemporary, and I tried to learn a little bit about Buddhism. I realized very quickly that this was not me and it was not for me. I knew Japanese art from growing up with it surrounding me, and I knew that my strength was really in my eyes and what I felt in my heart when I looked at a Japanese print or painting. I also realized that there had to be a more entertaining way to show the beauty, the history, and the humor in Japanese art. However, last night, after I had a few glasses of wine, I thought I would give it one more try in order to prove to my parents, my colleagues, and society that I was a very cultured, scholarly individual. Thus, I started reading this book. I found it on the bookshelves. It's called The Japanese Pilgrimage by Oliver Statler. And I've now read about 8 pages, and this is what I've learned. This book is about the superstar of Buddhism, a man named Kobodaishi, who lived in the 8th and 9th century and made a famous pilgrimage to 88 temples. He spends his time walking thousands of miles through the mountains, doing scholarly research and meditating. Everyone wears white when they make this pilgrimage. So I wore a white t-shirt, and I'll show you a little bit of it without showing you my stomach. At the time, there was no Major League Baseball, there was no orchestra, there were no rock concerts, sort of just like now. The path was thousands of miles, and many people ended up dead. It was pretty rough. In modern times, people still go on this path to try and find themselves. So, before I show you my path, let's look at a few prints and paintings from the Verne collection. This first print is by a guy named Paul Benny. And Paul Benny is a Scottish artist who works in the same style as some of the artists in the 1920s and 30s, like Hasui and the artists who did kabuki actors and sometimes beautiful women. His work is in numerous museums, collections, including the Metropolitan. This next work is by Yoshikatsu Tamekane. It's called King's Road. And Yoshikatsu Tamekane is one of the leading contemporary Japanese printmakers. And this is a diptych, and it goes like this. He traveled to China last year, and no, he didn't bring back the virus to all of us. And the interesting thing about this woodblock print is that it's interchangeable and can continue on forever. And it can go like this, or it can go like this. It's reversible. The next artist is a man named Yoshio Ikizaki, who recently had a one-man show at the LA Art Museum. And he's a sumi painter. This is done with a very, very wet brush. And this is called Timeless Memory. But it's sort of like the brush painting that would probably have been done in the 8th and 9th century. The next work is by a Finnish artist named Tuula Moilanen. She's a children's book writer and illustrator. She lived in Japan, I think, for about 20 years. This is a woodblock print called Sweet Dreams. The last work goes along with the theme of today. It's a woodblock print by an early contemporary Japanese printmaker named Iwao Akiyama. It's called Making Footprints, Stepping Firmly in the Snow. When I heard that many people died on this long pilgrimage that began in the 8th and 9th century, I decided to make a much shorter path in my backyard that my dad started 70 years ago. He didn't really know what he was doing, and I really have no clue what I'm doing. But let's go look at this path that's much easier than taking the pilgrimage in Shikoku. So this is sort of like the path that Kobodaishi would have taken in the 8th and 9th century. This is as much as I can recreate for you. The path is about all I've learned about Kobodaishi and Buddhism. Like the pilgrimage, which is one big circle, where you eventually end up where you started. My guess is that we all struggle to achieve greatness, but most of us, like me, end up exactly where we started. The Verne collection started in this little house 67 years ago. And with the quarantine, I've made a complete circle here now. So to all the recent and upcoming graduates who won't have a graduation, if I was the keynote speaker for your graduation, this is what I tell you. And this is a tip from Kobodaishi and what I learned from my dad. An ethical man thinks only of himself. Wait, no, that's wrong. No. What they actually said is, an ethical man thinks of others first and himself last. We always end Coffee with Mike with the shot of the day. So here's the shot of the day. This was the hook shot that my friends and I would practice over and over and over again. Let me take my glasses off. And that's Coffee with Mike. See you next week.